Yeah, so I'm Chad Schooley. I'm the director for the Parks and Forestry Department. And we're going to be doing a presentation today. Adam Decline, he is with the Planning and Zoning Department. He's the county planner. And so we have been working on a project, I guess, over the past several months. We did some planning last year, but we're basically gearing up and doing the project now, and that is updating our parks, forestry, and open spaces plan. And so, has everyone here, did you all take the survey? Raise your hand if you did take the survey. All right, well good. Most of you have, so you're kind of familiar with it, and hopefully if you did not, you're a little bit aware of that. But basically the reason that we set that survey out, and it was for the month of, was it February?
Correct. Yep, okay. I'll touch base on the exact dates. I think it was open February, yeah, for a little over 30 days.
Yeah. And so, yeah, Adam will touch base on that. But the reasoning for the survey is basically to update our 5-year plan. We try to do an update every 5 years. The last one was completed in 2011, so it's been obviously over a little bit over that 5-year mark. There's a couple main reasons that we do that. First of all is just to basically see what trends there are. So this plan isn't only like Wood County feedback. It's also looking at including like the statewide, the SCORP is what they call it, the statewide comp plan. And so Adam takes a look at that, and he'll get into that a little bit more. But so really it's looking at the statewide trends for outdoor recreation as well as like a regional trend. And then obviously just Wood County employees as well. So we want to really get some good feedback from residents. And that's the main reason behind the survey that went out. We had really good response, a lot better than previous surveys, but what I'm going to do as we get into this is I'm going to basically just go over some projects that we've completed since the last update. So since 2011, I'm going to go over some larger projects that we've completed within our parks. So I mentioned the one reason for the survey, or for this update, was to look at trends.
There you are.
All right, we have someone from Marshfield. And so that was one reason. The other reason is, so in order to be eligible for grant funding, so the DNR as well as some federal dollars, land and water stewardship funding, as well as different recreational trails. There's all different sorts of funding opportunities through grants, through the DNR and the federal government. But in order to be eligible for that, you have to have an updated outdoor recreation plan. And so that's another reason why we do this update every 5 years, or give or take a few years from there. So we'll get into some of the projects that we've accomplished over the last several years here. And I just want to let you know, so if you have any questions or comments, just feel free to raise your hand at any point. At the end, we'll also open it up for question and comment also. So I don't know how well you'll be able to see this. So the upper left-hand corner, on several occasions we've worked with the Consolidated Muskie Club, and that's a local club that one of their main goals is for stocking muskie within the local water bodies. So Lake Nepco actually has been stocked several times over the last 6-7 years. And we do that by, they match a grant that we apply for. It's called the County Conservation Grant. And so every year we're eligible for, I believe it's about $2,500. And they match that with a donation from their club. And that all goes towards purchasing muskie stock. So that's been a good cooperation with that club over the last several years. Another thing that we've done in the upper right-hand corner is we've replaced most of our signage. So we've updated it with, it's not real new anymore, but the logo with the Parks and Forestry on it, as well as just giving it a fresh coat of paint, making it look a lot better. So a lot of our entrance signs to our locations have been updated. This is just kind of a general picture of a campsite, but a lot of our campsites over the past several years have been updated to 50 amp electric. They've also been expanded as far as the width and length. A lot of those have been expanded, and we've done a lot of I guess, hardening. So we bring in recycled asphalt to put down, and that makes for a good base for the bigger campers that we start seeing, or we have seen over the past several years. This here is from our NEPCO shelter building. So that was constructed and completed in 2005. But with anything, once you get done, you realize that you don't have enough storage room. And so this little wing here was constructed mainly to hold the tables and chairs in that shelter building. So these two pictures, the left-hand side, this is an equipment storage building, and this is a new shop building. So at our Dexter County Park shop, our Dexter County Park, we constructed a new building for housing a lot of our equipment, and also a new maintenance building. That also serves as our forestry shop. We used to have a forestry shop, and it's still there, located next to the Wisconsin Rapids Highway shop. And it just wasn't, it wasn't in one of our parks. It wasn't in a real good location. So we ended up basically, the highway department has acquired that. And in exchange for that, they did quite a bit of work out here, site work for us. And so the old shop that's located out there, it was a very small building, and we just kind of outgrew the space, and so that was sold within the last couple months to a private individual. So that lot with the old shop has been sold, and it's now obviously on the tax roll. So upper right-hand corner is the new shower building at Dexter County Park. If you're a camper, if you've been out there, we now have 2 shower buildings out there, and so this was a great addition. We also, in addition to that, we upgraded all the sites in the third loop. So again, we put in 50 amp service, as well as upgraded and made larger the camp pads themselves. Lower right hand corner is just, this is actually from Powers Bluff. So a lot of the vault toilets that we have in our parks, they're either original, as in 1940s, somewhere in that area, or most of them are quite old. So we have been, over the years, just updating them and basically making them more accessible. So we're up to ADA code, as well as just more appealing. Although it's still vault toilet, it's a little nicer than the old style. So I remember when I grew up, North Park, we had multi-hole stools on a flat plywood board. So we've come a long way. Couple pictures of just parking lot updates. So this one here is at Northwood County Park at the shelter building, and this is a brand new parking lot at our Red Sands Beach Pavilion. So we have a lot of infrastructure in our parks, whether it's parking lots, roadways, bridges, culverts, and so that all has to be maintained obviously through the years. And so we try to fit those in with larger projects, and where we can get partial grant funding. So we try to acquire or accomplish those projects in combination with other projects.
Chad,
Yes.
what angle are we looking at that parking lot in the lower left corner?
This one here?
Yeah.
So
Direction.
we are facing the, you can see a little bit of the shelter building here. So we're facing the east at Red Sands Beach out front. So this would be kind of the entrance road to that enclosed shelter building, the stone shelter building.
Would we be facing west then?
I'm sorry, west, yeah. Thank you.
That would be
Yes, that is west.
North Park Road or something.
Yes.
Whatever what.
Yep. Okay, so this picture up here is Powers Bluff, and so I'm sure you've heard in 2012 we acquired through a land trade 223 acres to the north of Powers Bluff, and so the view that you're looking at right now is looking to the south towards the hill here. You'd be on County Trunk N to the north of the hill. And so this used to be an old farmstead. So there's an old house, several outbuildings. There were 2 barns. They're very much in disrepair. And so when we first acquired that, just for safety purposes and obviously for future development, we knocked down a lot of those. We actually sold some of the product on auction. So people came in and salvaged a lot of the wood and things like that.
That was my question.
What'd you do with the barn board?
Yeah, so a lot of the barn boards, the beams, all that was sold on auction. The house itself, actually, it was kind of neat. So the Arpin Fire Department approached me and they wanted to use it for a control burn or a training session. And so that's how that was taken down, was basically by being burned by the local fire department. So currently, as you can see, we basically removed everything. We just have a small parking lot, which will serve as a trailhead in the future. We left this one silo, and the reason being is that we haven't looked real close into it, but we'd like to put some sort of platform on top and actually have a stairway going up and have it as a lookout tower at that location. So playground equipment, that's something that we try to improve over time. It's very expensive. This piece of equipment right here was about $25,000 for install and the cost of the equipment. So it's not cheap, but as things get outdated, we do have to replace those as well. Couple shelter buildings you'll probably recognize. So this is the new Red Sands Beach Pavilion, and that replaced the old beach house, which was right on the edge of the sand there. This is same thing, Southwood County Park, the enclosed shelter. Something new that we did is we have a new roof on there, brand new windows. All the doors are fiberglass doors. The bathroom was fully remodeled. So even these older buildings, people really like the nostalgia, and we try to keep that, but we're trying to update it. We have LED lighting. We're trying to make things more modern as well. This here is a ski hill operator shack. So on the top of the ski hill at Powers Bluff. So that's new. You can kind of see on the bottom here, we did some improvements a few years back to the bottom of the tube hill, and the reason being was all 4 runs at one time converged in the one location, and safety reasons we separated the west and the east runs. That's worked out very well. Past few seasons it'd be obviously ideal if we had a little more snow to work with, but it really has saved on a lot of collisions down below. SelfPark Dam improvements. So that project included a new retaining wall, just a handrail here, as well as inside the building we also added monitoring equipment. So our staff now can, on their laptop, they can actually see what the gates are at. We have cameras out there. They can adjust the gates remotely. So it adds to safety, it adds to convenience. Our guys don't have to come in all the time during the evening hours. They can do it at home. This is just a water crossing at Northwood County Park that was replaced. This was a large project. This was the dredging of Lake Wazeecha on the far east end, and the County Highway Department, actually, we contracted with them to do that project, but it was a learning project for both entities, let's just say that, and it turned out very good, but that was their first dredging project, and that was the first time I managed a project like that as well. So final product, I think, turned out very well, but it was interesting. And this is just a sign of a trail here. We have been doing some trail improvements. So this is at Nepco County Park. And although there had been a single track trail for years that people utilized out there, it was never really a public official thing. It was just kind of individuals went out there, created trail and all this good stuff. So we signed it now, we have it mapped and signed, and so there's a lot of people that use that trail summertime and wintertime. Wintertime for snowshoeing as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Adam, and he's going to just go over the survey itself.
Great.
So.
Thank you, Chad. A lot of nice improvements over the past few years. I want to introduce myself again. My name is Adam DeCline. I'm the county planner. I work up in the planning and zoning department. And over the past several months, I've been working with the Parks and Forestry Department on an update of the Wood County Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces Plan. And a part of that update is going to be a community survey. Obviously, that's why everybody's here today. I'm going to present some of the results from that community survey. little bit about the survey purpose, why we did this survey. It was important to gather public opinions and attitudes towards Wood County's outdoor recreation system. Specifically, the survey looked at facility usage, also preferred recreation amenities, activities, community values, funding mechanisms, and potential future projects. And those questions, why they were asked, it's to provide guidance for, number one, the planning document, number two, obviously the Parks and Forestry Department, and also elected officials that make decisions in the community. Like I said before, the public input collected through the survey will be utilized in the update of the plan. And I think anticipated completion of this plan is going to be obviously this year, 2018. Chad alluded before that the last plan was updated in 2011. It is a requirement of the DNR to update the plan every 5 years to remain eligible for grant funding opportunities. And public participation is essential to the overall success of the plan. Obviously, it makes sense to develop a plan for the community that was done by the community, the input that was provided. And there's many ways that we will be gathering input from the community to incorporate it into this plan. It's not just the community survey here. Survey methods. The survey was open January 26th to March 31st, so a little over 30 days. Hopefully everybody here, it sounds like, or it looked like everybody completed the survey. It was available online by SurveyMonkey, also available as a hard copy upon request. It was available to residents and non-residents. Now you might wonder why we would want to include non-residents as a part of a community survey for Wood County. But you got to take a look at the users of these recreational areas, and obviously there's non-residents coming into Wood County that are utilizing these facilities. Tools that we use to, I guess, notice the survey or get the word out that this survey was available. There was over 500 postcards that were sent out to all the, I guess, randomly to all municipalities in Wood County that included the town, villages, cities. Notice was sent out by email. I think that's how a majority of the Wood County employees received notice of the survey that it was available, and elected officials. There was probably some other groups that were emailed out, possibly, I think park users, right? Visitors and users were...
I don't believe so. I think it was
Okay.
mainly Wood County staff and elected officials.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Facebook, radio, newspapers, and it was also, the link for the survey was available on the Wood County website. Survey results, what we're going to present today. There was a total of 591 surveys that were completed. The Wood County Planning and Zoning Department, in collaboration with Parks and Forestry, we compiled all this data into a survey summary that is available on the Wood County website. It'll go a little bit more further into detail than what we're going to go through today, so if you're interested, feel free to take a look at that document. So starting out here, question 1 kind of gives an idea of the respondent's profile. Who responded to or who participated or completed in the survey. There was 87.5% that were residents, and there was 12.5% that were non-residents. And like I said before, we felt that was important to include some of that input from the non-residents so we could get that, that input from the non-resident users and visitors. Obviously very important to get resident input.
One thing I just want to add is when we look at resident versus non-resident in our campgrounds, it's actually a very close to 50-50%. So half are residents, half are non. So I think it is very important that we get feedback to visitors as well, or from visitors.
Age profile for participants was pretty well rounded. It would have been nice to receive some additional input from people under 20, teenagers. However, we had, I think our highest category at 36% was 35 to 49-year-olds. But we felt this was a pretty good representation or rounded age group classification for people completing the survey. So how were people made aware of the survey? 41% were made aware by email. Facebook was also another good avenue at 28%. The 14% that is where coming from the 500 postcards that were mailed out, and there were some other avenues that people were made aware. There was 4% that was other. That included, say, word of mouth. I believe some of the schools, teachers informed students of this opportunity to participate in the survey. That's what the other group consists of. Question 4 takes a look at the facility usage, and it's specific to the winter-spring season. Now, Chad, you want to maybe go into further detail why you'll see later on there's some other questions specific to obviously more of the open camping season, summer, fall. That's why we broke it up into these different areas, right?
Right. Technically a lot of our park areas are, May 1st through October 31st. That's what the signs say. But we're getting more and more an increasing use throughout the year at a lot of our facilities, whether it's walk trails or what have you. So we really wanted to nail down, what are people using the parks for in different seasons, basically, and we just broke it down into a 6-month section. So.
Okay, thank you. So as you can see, the most visited park was SelfPark, Wazeecha, at 49%. At 40% was NEPCO, and I'm thinking these were higher just based solely on their close proximity to larger population areas, with Grand Rapids, Wisconsin Rapids right in that area. Followed behind that, North Park, Dexter Park, and Powers Bluff. Those were all fairly close in facility usage. One, I guess, question, since we do have that information with the non-residents and the residents, which area do you think was visited most by non-residents, if you had to guess? Any guesses? SelfPark, Wazeecha. Everybody's with SelfPark, Wazeecha. Did they say something on the computer?
I didn't catch it.
Okay.
I heard a hachu.
It's actually NEPCO. NEPCO was the most visited county park by non-residents. And maybe Chad has some insight into that. With the pavilion.
Yeah, I think that's probably the main driver there would be the year-round shelter building we have there. So.
Question 5 dives into activity uses during this spring summer season, and out in front we have hiking, and we're also including under that hiking category walking, running, activities like that, and that was at 45%. At 34% we had nature observing and sightseeing. The graph here shows all of the top responses that was identified from the survey. The table below the graph goes into a little bit further detail with other activities that weren't as highly, I guess, participated in or rated as the top responses in the graph above.
One thing to remember with these are the responses are not all inclusive. So, one person who camps could also have several different, so it's not only 45% of the people, but there could be several different uses, and that makes sense. Hiking makes sense of being the largest user group because campers hike, hunters hike. I mean, a lot of people use the walk trails or do that hiking. So,
And a lot of these activities or uses that are identified in this survey are similar to obviously state and national trends for activities and uses for recreational purposes. Question 6 goes into more of the open season, the summer, fall, what facilities were visited. Again, SelfPark was the most visited at 53.5%. NEPCO again follows behind that at 38.5%. Does anybody have a guess for what was the most visited area in the summer, fall for non-residents? We knew NEPCO was winter, spring. What about the summer, fall? It was actually North Park and NEPCO again. And you can see Powers Bluff, if we had the winter graph up next to this, you can tell Powers Bluff drops off in usage obviously in the summer just based on the recreation or the winter recreation that occurs at that facility. Moving on to the activities that are most participated in the summer, fall season. We had, again, walking, running, hiking at 65%. The other top responses included camping, biking, fishing, picnicking, cookout, playgrounds, a private event or party, and nature observing and sightseeing. All pretty closely rated there. And again, that table goes into further detail with some of the other activities that are participated in during the summer and fall. Overall experience from people that visited these areas, I think it was very positive. About 86% said they rated their overall experience very, very good to good, which is probably good for Chad to hear. Likes to see that type of input or response.
yeah, that was I like seeing those numbers. Good or very good, if you can have that high of a percentage, we're doing something right, so that's good to see.
Question 9 takes a look at community values. What do people place their importance on outdoor recreation in the community? And actually, number 1, the most important value identified for recreational opportunities was, let's see here, where's the clicker here? The opportunity for physical exercise and social and emotional development. That was at 69% placed a high value on or high importance on that value. Followed behind that at 66% wholesome and fun recreation areas and park facilities that provide family activities. 66% placed high importance on that. I won't go into further detail on some of the other, I guess, community values, but that information is is presented in this graph that's available on the Wood County website. Following is a list of statements regarding park and recreation areas, and it was assessing people's opinions on if they agreed or disagreed on the statement. And overwhelmingly, as you see, number one here, 96.5% agreed that recreational areas improve the quality of life in Wood County. That one stood out in front of the other, I guess, statements. So that was obviously, I think we know that people appreciate recreational areas and agree that it improves the quality of life in the community and of its residents.
And although it's not as high, but it's still very high, the number 3 I think is important as well, and it gets back to the family. Plays an important part in the decision of families to move to or remain in Wood County. So I think that's a very strong indicator as well as far as the importance of these areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, each of these statements provide information that'll be utilized and incorporated into the plan that'll help base decisions for the next 5 years. Just because I'm skipping over it at all doesn't mean that it's not important at all. Funding, we get into the fun questions about funding. The question was posed, if you could decide how many of your household dollars would go towards maintaining parks and forestry areas in Wood County, how much would that be? And actually the top response was $50 at 34%. Followed behind 26% said $100. And I don't know if Chad, if you want to maybe give an idea of currently how much of...
Yeah, so I guess if you were to look at, the easiest way to do it is if you were to look at your tax bill and looked at the County of Wood taxes that you pay if you're a landowner in Wood County. We average between 1.5% to 2.5% of the county expenses on an annual basis. So that's the quick and easy way of doing that, is looking at your tax bill, taking that percentage, and that's what you contribute via property taxes. So,
was anybody surprised by these results at all? Okay. Question 12, another funding question. It was posed, how should future operating cost increases be paid for? In the top selection at 50.5% was increased percent of tax levy received. Followed behind that, was increased existing user fees. One thing that I thought was interesting, what funding mechanism do you think non-residents selected for how they thought cost increases should be paid for? Any idea if you had to guess? Non-residents. And that's what Chad and I thought too. However, at I think it was 48%, they chose, it was their highest selection, increase existing user fees, which is, I mean, non-residents are usually camping, and obviously that involves user fees. So they were open to increasing the existing user fees. So that's good information that we can take and incorporate into the plan and how Parks and Forestry can move forward with future funding decisions. Question 12, the next several questions go into, I guess, assessing different future projects. There's different areas that are, or categories that are assessed. And the purpose of a question like this, or these next several questions, is to provide guidance to the Parks and Forestry Department and to provide guidance for the plan on how or what future projects should be pursued in the future. So this graph is specific to trails on what projects people thought were important. The top three here: improve existing walking, biking trails, create more walking, biking trails, and connect Wood County parks with other walking and biking trails, were all fairly close. The highest was create more walking and biking trails at 58%. So obviously that gives a little bit of direction on what projects should be pursued specific to trails. Next, we take a look at day use, and the top rated or selected project at 59% was consider providing equipment rentals like kayaks, paddleboards, frisbee discs, bicycles. I think I've seen this interest in other surveys as well, in other communities that I've worked with in Wood County, so it makes sense that it would obviously be reflected in the whole Wood County survey. Followed behind that, we had at 51.5% construct, maintain, or improve park shelters to accommodate seasonal and year-round use for private or community events. Kind of the top two potential future projects that were identified there for day use. Campgrounds, the next question takes a look at for future projects. Three stood out right around that 40%, 40, 41%, 42%. Number one would be construct full hookup sites. Pretty close. Allow seasonal camping and develop additional sites within existing parks. So again, there's some direction on what to pursue for projects in the campground areas. Water activities. There was one main project that stood out, which is number 7 here: improve fishing opportunities in lake areas, or in area lakes, through fish stocking and habitat improvements. That one was at 53.5%. Followed behind that, there was, I would say, 4 that were fairly close. So some additional input we may request at some public hearings or open houses that we have coming up on, to get a little bit more direction for water activities or water recreation in the county recreation system. Other, just some random future projects that Parks and Forestry wanted to pose to the general public. Top selection at 59% was implement strategies to help control invasive species on both land and water in county parks. And at 51%, we had encouraged creation of park friends groups to assist in funding and maintaining the parks. And these, obviously, people place a little bit of importance on the other projects as well, but those 2 that I mentioned stood out the most. Winter recreation, I would say overwhelmingly, and it makes sense too, at 58%, install lights at Powers Bluff, obviously for night tubing, downhill skiing and snowboarding. Behind that, we had develop sledding areas within the parks at 45.5%. But there's some guidance for winter recreation for the future here. And that is, I guess, a brief, not a brief, we went a little bit in depth to what the responses were from the survey, but additional information, like I said before, is available on the Wood County website in that survey summary or report. There's additional comments that are listed in that survey summary. Some of them are pretty interesting. And if there's any questions that you have, feel free to ask them now or get a hold of Chad and I, and we can answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions, comments? We're going to have Adam had mentioned tonight at Powers Bluff, we're having a similar presentation. Be a little bit longer. At the end, we'll have comment cards if people want to have more comments or give us more comments. We'll also have a little bit more detail as far as projects that we've identified as potential future projects as well within our park. So you're welcome to come tonight. Otherwise, next Wednesday, we're going to have one here in town at NEPCO Shelter Building. Both those start at 7 p.m. So. Again, if you have further questions that you don't want to bring up now, or if something comes up, shoot me an email and we can include that into the comments and feedback portion of this. So,
Thanks for coming.
yeah, thanks a lot.